When we take a photo, our cameras capture that data and transfer that information to a memory card. These cards are very small and can hold thousands of images. We transfer those images from our cameras to a hard drive to store them. We look through them, we find the ones we like, edit them, and sometimes forget about the rest. The more often we take photos, the more storage we'll need. Over the years, we collect a bunch of these hard drives, and if we're not careful of what we're putting on here or how, these will fill up faster than we expected. We may be storing unnecessary files, blurry photos, duplicates, or even worse, forget what's on these drives, making it difficult to find the images that you actually want. I don't want this to happen to you. Let's go through a few ways that we can reduce the size of these files and create less digital clutter. All of these cameras are going to shoot different sized photos. The larger the resolution of an image, usually the larger the size of the file. This Sony camera is going to shoot 33 megapixel photos, which are about 50 megabytes in size. This Fuji camera shoots 26 megapixel images, which are about 28 megabytes in size. The top of these bricks are going to represent resolution, and the height is the size of the file. The larger this resolution ratio is, the more we can enlarge an image, and the more we can crop into an image. 10 photos from the Sony camera are going to take up 500 megabytes of space, and 10 photos from the Fuji camera are going to take up 280 megabytes of space. Typically, cameras like this are used for shooting commercial campaigns, and the photos are going to be sold or enlarged for magazines or billboards. Cameras like this are typically used for snapshots, but the quality of the images that come out of here are still great, and they can still be enlarged and used, maybe just not as large as some of the other cameras. You can store more images from this camera than you can from others. When you're selecting a camera, keep this in mind. Where are these photos going to end up, and how are you going to use them? If you're shooting for a client, I advise you to shoot as large as possible file as possible, but we'll touch more on this later. Regardless of the file size of the images you choose to shoot, we're going to have a lot of photos to look through. The process of looking through images that you've shot is called culling. When you're doing this, you're determining what photos are the strongest, which ones are worth editing, and which ones are the rejects. You're probably familiar with this part of the editing process. When I'm culling in Lightroom, I give a 1-star rating to the images that I think are good. I give a 2-star rating to the images that I really like. I also use the X button on the keyboard to reject photos. The photos that get rejected are the ones where I forget to take off my lens cap, I've accidentally pressed down the shutter button, or I have dozens and dozens of the exact same image. Or the images are just so blurry that they're completely unusable. These are the photos that I'm never going to use again, ever. Without fail, every photo shoot that I do, I have photos that I'm never going to use again. It's usually 5 to 10% of the images that I take. Lots of times when I'm shooting, I'm looking for a certain moment and shooting photos until I find that moment. I'll use that final photo and forget about all the pictures leading up to that moment. These are the images that we can get rid of forever. If I'm shooting for myself, I delete these right away. But if I was hired by somebody, I hang on to these until the finished edited images are delivered, and I usually wait a month or more before I get rid of these rejected images, just in case the client comes back looking for one of these. To get rid of rejected photos in Lightroom, select Photo from the menu bar, delete rejected photos, and click OK. What about the images that we haven't rejected and haven't edited? Should we keep these? Should we delete these? Or is there a way to reduce the file size of these images? I found a way to reduce the file size of these images while maintaining the exact same resolution and information. I found this feature inside Lightroom that does just that. It's a function called Convert to DNG. Our cameras shoot different types of raw photos. Canon cameras shoot CR2 files. Sony cameras shoot ARW files, and Fuji cameras shoot RAF files. DNGs are just another type of raw file. They're highly compatible on all kinds of computers and editing programs, where raw files that camera companies create may not be as compatible. And the bonus of these files is they're typically 15 to 20% smaller in file size than the rest. But in my experience, I found that they can be much smaller. By converting our ARW or CR2 files to a DNG, the file size will be reduced, maintaining all of the information, all of the resolution, and we'll have a much smaller file size. So this is what I do to all the images that don't have a star rating. These are the images that I'm most likely not gonna use. I might, but the chances are very, very slim. I create a filter that finds images that are equal to no ranking. I select all of these images and pick Library, Convert to DNG, and make sure that I have Delete Originals after successful conversion selected. This is a pretty quick process. When I do this with 100 raw files, the file size reduces by about 70 to 80%, and all of the properties in the photos are maintained. Yes, 70 to 80%. I'm not sure why more people are not talking about this. I've watched a whole bunch of videos about this and compared the photos before and after I do this, and I can't see any change in the raw photos. I usually do this after I delete the rejects or at the end of the year before I archive stuff. Again, if you're shooting a set of photos for a client, use caution and discretion. Don't mess it up for them. So far, we've just been talking about cameras and the files they create, but there's something we haven't touched on yet: JPEGs. When we're exporting the files that we'll send to our phones, our loved ones, or clients, we can change a whole bunch of settings. And I'm sure you've seen this window when you're exporting your photos. And I'm not gonna claim that I have the right export settings, but this is where we can change the size of our JPEGs. There's a lot of other people much smarter than me that have better options on what to set these to, so watch some other videos on what to change here. But by changing these settings, you will change what your finished image looks like and the file size. So let's assume that you found the most ideal settings for here, and you've exported your images. We can make our JPEGs at least 5 to 10% or more smaller. I use a program called Image Optim that shrinks the size of these files and maintains the resolution and quality of the photos. You just drag and drop your images into this program and it will quickly compress them. And with the settings I use, it's gonna compress 10 to 20% out of these files. And I think that's great, and I think you should give this a try for yourself. I like shrinking these images that are specifically gonna be sent to our phones because they're likely only gonna be seen on our phones. And iPhone storage is not unlimited. Every megabyte counts for me. I do not want that message that says iPhone storage full. Please don't take my word blindly. Go try some of this for yourself and see if these techniques and tools will work for you. If you're shooting photos for yourself, I think these are great systems and tools that are gonna work. However, this is a big one, listen up. If you are shooting for a client, use all of this with caution. Your client is hiring you to carry out their vision, to protect their images, and to safely store high-resolution files, so be careful and have backups. Don't delete anything or compress anything until they've given you 2 thumbs up, paid, and even once that's done, consider if this is really worth doing. Something you could consider is working in the cost of a hard drive into the price of your job. Think about it. I had a blast making this one for you guys, so if you made it this far in the video, it's safe to say you enjoyed it. Please consider clicking subscribe. It's free and you can unsubscribe at any point. Thanks for watching. My name's Davey, and it's all gravy.
By Jove, Higgins, that was a glorious tea.